Good afternoon and welcome everybody. This is Gill with Financial Press Media, and with me today is CEO Setti Coscarella from TAAT Lifestyle and Wellness.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me on.
TAAT is listed on the Canadian Securities Exchange under the symbol TAAT. For US investors, it's TOBAF. And lastly, for the German investors, it's 2TP2. To simplify this business, TAAT is involved in producing and selling hemp-based cigarettes, which contains zero nicotine and zero tobacco. Setti, let's start right from the beginning. How did you get in this industry? Tell us about your background. And most importantly, how are you leveraging your specific knowledge of the tobacco industry for this company?
It's a great question. So my background initially started in finance, worked in some private equity, was an entrepreneur for a while, sold my business, and then found myself working at Philip Morris. Now, while there, I worked predominantly on their reduced risk product portfolio. So the product was called IQOS. It's a product that was in development at Philip Morris for many, many years. They spent about $8 billion developing it. And in 2016, started launching it in Japan and then looking at taking that throughout the world. Now, in Canada, I had come on just as they were beginning to launch in that market. And part of my job was to figure out how do you get smokers to switch from smoking cigarettes to other alternatives. So while there, I worked with thousands of smokers to figure out what it is they like about smoking, what they don't like about smoking, and why they might consider moving over to another product. Now, what I found was really interesting. About 75% of the smokers had tried alternative products. Yet, if you take a look at the market, when you look at the nicotine market, the number of smokers still outweighs the number of vapors 20-1. So it's inverted. So if I've got 80% or almost 80% of people who have tried vaping, then why are more than 80% of people still smoking? It's because the vaping doesn't work. Right. Now, what's interesting about that is the fact that 80% or 75% of smokers have tried vaping tells you that they're looking for an alternative. The fact that the majority are still smoking means that they haven't found it. Doesn't mean they haven't stopped looking. It means they haven't found it. So when you start adding a lot of these pieces together, you say, all right, well, I believe that smoking is the preferred delivery mechanism for smokers. They like smoking. Mm-hmm. Can we give them something better to smoke? And that's really what TAAT is. So we figured out a way to take a proprietary blend, which includes hemp, and we call that Beyond Tobacco, and we've processed it in a way so that when a smoker smokes it, it tastes a lot more, if not better, than a cigarette, like tobacco, than it does hemp. Because there are other hemp cigarettes, and they taste like hemp or cannabis, which is fine. But for somebody who's smoking a Marlboro or a Camel, they're not looking for something that tastes like they're smoking a product from Canopy or Aurora. They want something that tastes like you're smoking a tobacco cigarette. And I think that was the key piece in this whole industry that nobody had figured out yet, that's what we did. And when we figured out how to do that, we put a patent around it. And that really allows us to kind of protect that know-how of making a product like that and delivering it to the market, because I think that smokers will prefer an alternative that tastes like a cigarette as opposed to an alternative that tastes like cannabis. And when you look at vape, while there's an initial appeal, long term, I don't believe that it's as sticky as the industry would make you believe. That's why they end up going back to smoking cigarettes. But with our product, I think that we can deliver a fundamentally similar experience, if not better, with a product that won't keep people addicted. So because of that, I think a lot of smokers don't like to think of themselves as addicts. But if you were to take the tobacco industry and overlay it on the alcohol industry, all the consumers would be alcoholics.
I agree. Yeah.
Right? But if you look at the alcohol industry, like I like a bourbon or a scotch, but I'm not an alcoholic. I can have it when I like it. Well, why can't we take that same methodology and apply it to tobacco? Why can't they give you something to smoke because you like it? Whenever you want it. Not because you're physiologically dependent to it. And I think that's exactly the angle and the way that we're approaching this particular problem. I think that we can deliver something to smokers that isn't addictive, that tastes better than a cigarette, at a price point that will be cheaper than a cigarette, because we can pass a lot of those savings back on to the consumer. So what we typically end up doing is pegging it against the leading brands and offering it at a significant discount. So if you take a look at Ohio as an example, average pack of Marlboro in Ohio is about $7 a pack, but we sell TAAT in Ohio. We launched middle of December. We sell it for $3.99.
Wow.
Which is a significant discount to, a leading brand. And even at that discount, we're able to achieve very similar margins that any leading tobacco company would otherwise be able to achieve.
Now, it is evident that TAAT is an outlier as the product is picking up demand in the last 6 to 8 weeks. Also, the product was sold out and about 60% of the retailers placed reorders. Can you please elaborate on the early adopters for your product and the upcoming transition to the early majority?
So, I was very pleased to see that the product started gaining traction as quickly as it did. Now, normally in the tobacco industry, when you'd launch a product, you wouldn't see traction that fast. It can take months and months. So I think the fact that we were able to see reorders that quickly is very promising and encouraging for us as a young company. Now, initially, you do get your early adopters. And I think we also have the benefit of having a lot of shareholders who are also fans of the company. So what ends up happening is you get a lot of shareholders. They also go out and buy the TAAT product, especially the ones that live in Ohio. And they'll go out and give it to the smokers that they know. So it helps socialize the product a lot faster. And I think from the feedback that we've been getting, almost unanimously, people will hand these products out to smokers. They'll try it, and if they don't know that it's an alternative, they won't know. And if they do, they'll say, holy cow, this actually tastes really good. So it always exceeds expectations. Now, whether it's on the original, the menthol, the smooth, I think almost unanimously, smokers really, really like the product. So as we start gaining more and more presence through retail channel, and as we launched e-commerce, I think that we'll be able to really see a significant chunk of the market looking to adopt it.
As of the year 2021, TAAT is focused on capturing the market share in US. Can you please tell us more about that and your ambitions to enter the European and Asian markets, as that represents a large portion of tobacco consumption?
Well, listen, being in North America, I think the first market that we should look at, the US is an enormous market, okay? So the tobacco industry in the US is worth about $100 billion a year, okay? So when you kind of take a look at launching a new product in a market that big, it's an enormous market, right? And I think that we've got the know-how and wherewithal to start tackling that market. But to give you an example, gaining 0.5% of a share point, which is 1 out of 200 smokers, based on a $100 billion industry, you're doing $500 million a year in revenue. It's not bad, right? Say I'm half right. So 1 out of 400 smokers, it's still $250 million a year in the US.
Wow.
Which is enormous.
You're still laughing with the numbers.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Right? So, the opportunity in the US, we don't want to take our focus off of gaining as much share as we can in that market. And interestingly, when you kind of think about numbers like that, that also means that, say if it's 1 out of 200 smokers, 199 smokers don't like the product. I need 1 out of 200 to like the product, or 1 out of 400 to like the product. Now, as we start sort of gaining traction in the US, absolutely we'll start looking at international expansion opportunities. And that's why we went out and procured the patents or the trademarks that we did. So we went out and procured trademarks in about 60 countries, the EU and Asia being a big chunk of them. So, I think that should demonstrate to the market what our ambitions are in terms of where it is that we want to go. And the fact that we were able to get the trademark on the brand, both on TAAT and Beyond Tobacco, or at least we filed for them, I think hopefully demonstrates to the market that's kind of what our ambitions are. But you can't take the globe all in one foul swoop, right? That's why we start with Ohio. We start commercializing in Ohio. Now we expand to some of the surrounding states. Now we expand from there. Now that doesn't mean that we have to sort of completely finish commercializing the entirety of the United States before we start looking at international expansion. But you also have to remember we've been in market for 6 weeks. I think in 6 weeks we've done a pretty good job. Yeah. I think we'll be even further in the next 6 weeks than we did in the first 6 weeks, but that's how expansion goes, right? The hardest thing to do is go from 0 to 1. Going from 1 to 2 or 2 to 10 or 10 to 100 becomes progressively easier and easier and easier as you build sort of the playbook to do that. And that's really at the stage that we're at now. So for us, just launching in the market, this is the very beginning. But I think it's important for people to understand that we know how to commercialize a product. We've done it. And we're going to continue to do it here. And as we start growing, I think the market will respond favorably.
Tell us about your competitive advantage and the durability of it. What's stopping other companies from replicating what you're doing? And perhaps if you can elaborate on the intellectual property, as I believe that's a crucial element in the tobacco industry.
Well, I think you just answered the question, right? I mean, one of the ways that we're able to defend the market share that we'll go out and try to capture is because our product is going to be patented. I mean, we did the search before we filed the patent. Nobody had ever really thought about processing it in the way that we did so that we could take something that looks, smells, and tastes like hemp or cannabis, but yet when it comes out of this process, it looks, smells, and tastes like tobacco, right? I mean, that's a transformative process that we were able to figure out, and because of it, put a patent. So that helps protect that process and the ultimate end product. Now, in terms of other people that'll come out and try to do it, well, I mean, there are other hemp cigarettes that exist, but they look, smell, and taste like you're smoking hemp or cannabis, which is fine. I mean, there's a market for that. But, you know, when it comes to trying to tackle the tobacco market, which is this enormous beast, I think you need to deliver to that market a product that will be better than a cigarette, which includes taste. So I can give you better function, but the taste profile, I think, is a really important factor. Because if you think of cigarettes, okay, I can't think of anything someone consumes with the frequency of cigarettes and doesn't get sick of the taste, right? You're smoking the same thing 15 times a day, every day, 20 years, and on the 21st year, you're going to smoke the same thing. I can't drink 15 cups of coffee a day, every day, without getting, I mean, after about 4, I kind of get sick of the taste, right? You get that little pastiness in your mouth. But cigarettes are like that. And I think that's also one of the problems on the vape side, where they can create alternative flavors, and they might be appealing at first. But again, I like creme brulee. They have a creme brulee vape. I think Gill does. You can't have 15 creme brulees a day, every day, without kind of getting sick of that taste. So, you know, when I came in, that was one of the things that I really tried to pay a lot of attention to. How could we create a product that would generate the taste profile that a cigarette generates in the same format while delivering a molecule, i.e. CBD, that in my mind is significantly better than nicotine, because nicotine does nothing, right? Nicotine does nothing other than keep you addicted. There's nothing there, right? The CBD actually has some anti-anxiety properties. It can help sort of calm you down. And really when a smoker goes out for a cigarette, that's kind of what they're looking for. They're looking to kind of relax and just have a break. Now, the reason they have a cigarette and feel relaxed is because the way nicotine works, nicotine's got a half-life of about 45 minutes, okay? So when you get addicted to nicotine, after about an hour of not having nicotine, you get jittery. You go outside, you have a cigarette, you calm down. Smoking doesn't calm you down. The nicotine just took you out of a state of withdrawal, right? With TAAT, we can deliver a product that'll help satiate that anxiousness and make you feel calm. And every time I've given it to smokers, almost unanimously, they're like, I actually just kind of like the way I feel right now. It's calm, it feels pretty good. Well, great. Well, if I can deliver that feeling to more and more smokers at a more affordable price, how many do you think are going to take a shot on it? Right? I think my chances are a little better than 1 in 200.
Certainly, I would agree with that. Right? With COVID, most companies are increasing their online presence. Now, what is TAAT actively doing to scale online and get involved in the e-commerce business?
Yeah, so I mean, we've been working on e-commerce now for the last number of weeks. I'd say we're very, very close in terms of launching it to the public markets. And I think when we do that, I expect that a lot of people who are in states that we're not servicing through brick and mortar will now have the opportunity to buy it. And I think there's a fair amount of them that have been waiting for it. So I'm really looking forward to how the e-commerce performs as we get it launched.
So TAAT has great management. The demand for this unique product is rising. The company is expanding. Is now the right time for investors to consider adding your stock to their portfolio?
Well, listen, I mean, I think everybody can go out and do their due diligence, and that way they can figure out if it's the right investment opportunity for them. But I mean, for us, I can speak to building the business and we're progressively getting better and better and bigger every single day. So when's the best time? Yesterday, I guess. I mean, we're just getting started, right? So, if an investor has done their diligence and they think that this is an opportunity that they'd like to put their money in, then obviously we welcome them. But for us, we're just getting started. And I think we've put a lot of the right pieces in place to continue to grow. And with the partners that we've been able to bring on, I think we'll be able to achieve that growth very quickly.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, Setti.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
Again, that's Setti Coscarella, the CEO of TAAT Lifestyle and Wellness.